in the frigid and unforgiving conditions of the Ice Age, the ability to regulate body temperature directly determined survival. Without thick fur or a natural layer of insulating fat, humans faced a clear biological challenge. Without some form of protection, they would freeze to death. The solution was not genetic, but technological. It came in the form of humanity's earliest crude innovation, crafting and wearing clothes made from animal hides. Each time a hunter brought down a large animal, like a bison, antelope, or elk, they weren't just after meat. The hide was one of the most valuable parts of the carcass. But raw hide could not be used directly. Left untreated, it would harden, rot, and decompose. Processing hides required a systematic series of techniques that emerged tens of thousands of years ago. Archaeological evidence reveals that hide processing included multiple steps. First, scraping off remaining flesh using sharp stone tools. Next, soaking the hide in water, urine, or fermented plant liquids to soften the collagen fibers. Animal fat was then applied to the surface, where the hide was smoked for extended periods to preserve and disinfect it. In some prehistoric cultures, mineral substances such as iron oxide, red ochre, charcoal, or clay were used to dye the hides, possibly for waterproofing, spiritual, or group identification purposes. All these steps required skill, time, and experience accumulated over generations. There is no direct evidence that Stone Age humans left behind instruction manuals, but through the traces of tools, animal bones, and rare surviving samples, we can partially reconstruct hide-working techniques considered precursors to modern textile technology. One of the clearest pieces of evidence is the mummified body of Otzi, who lived around 5,300 years ago and was preserved in the Alps ice. His outfit included multiple layers of shirts, pants, gaiters, a bearskin cap, and a tool belt, all made from the hides of various animal species. The hides were sewn together using threads made from animal sinew or plant fibers, reflecting a clear understanding of human anatomy and the need to retain heat. Remarkably, the clothing structure was not random. His long coat covered his thighs and buttocks, areas vulnerable to heat loss. His gaiters fit snugly and were lined with dry grass. His head was covered with a close-fitting cap, targeting a region rich in blood vessels and prone to heat dissipation. These features reflect experimental knowledge of physiology and the cold environment. Beyond Otzi, researchers have found indirect evidence at much older archaeological sites, suggesting the use of animal hides may date back at least 170,000 years. In caves across South Africa and Europe, stone tools show signs of cutting and scraping on dry hides, and animal bones bear marks of deliberate skinning, not for consumption, but for harvesting the outer layers. Unlike animals with thick fur, humans had to design their protective covering using available resources. This required abstract thinking, choosing materials, processing them, cutting and shaping them to fit the body. Not all intelligent species could do this. Only Homo sapiens and some Neanderthal groups have left clear traces of clothing manufacture. This isn't just a story about tools, it's evidence of a major evolutionary leap. The combination of intelligence, tools, and cultural survival. From an evolutionary standpoint, clothing was a human-made technology invented to extend survival beyond the limits of biology. The fact that humans could survive in regions where average temperatures dropped below 0 degrees Celsius, like Siberia, Ice Age Europe, or the high mountains of Central Asia, cannot be explained without clothing. And clothing didn't come from genes. It came from learned skills, passed down and improved over time. In the history of evolution, few technologies have had such profound impact. Fire cooked food, weapons brought down prey, but clothing became a mobile shield, enabling Homo sapiens to conquer nearly every part of Earth's surface. Part 2. Tools not for killing, but for sewing. In prehistoric archaeological sites, tools are often categorized by purpose: hunting weapons, food processing tools, fire-starting implements. But there's one category of tools that is rarely highlighted, despite its critical role in survival during the Ice Age: tools for clothing. The earliest evidence of tools designed for sewing and tailoring appears at various sites dated between 40,000 and 20,000 years ago. In caves across Europe, Siberia, and Central Asia, archaeologists have unearthed sewing needles made from bone, with carefully crafted eyes for threading, and shafts that were smoothed and finely sharpened. Some of these needles are less than 7 centimeters long, small enough for precise handling, yet sturdy enough to pierce treated animal hides. Alongside bone needles, flat grinding stones have been found, shaped differently from chopping blades. These were likely used to cut fibers, strip hides, or smooth surfaces before stitching. At some locations, researchers discovered broken needle tips or worn areas at the piercing end, evidence of repeated and prolonged use, and perhaps even repair. Thread in prehistoric times wasn't made of textile fibers. It came from animal sinew, rawhide strips, or twisted plant fibers. These materials were tough and elastic, but required steady hands, keen eyesight, and precise puncturing skills. In low-light conditions, inside caves or near hearths, this was no easy task. Yet the widespread presence of sewing tools across cultures shows that tailoring was not incidental, but systematic and essential. Another compelling line of evidence comes from prehistoric human teeth. Microwear analysis of the incisors of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals reveals horizontal wear patterns, flat and repetitive, not caused by chewing food. These marks closely resemble those left by holding leather straps or sinews between the teeth while sewing or tying knots. While indirect, this evidence consistently supports the idea that sewing was a routine activity in daily life. Joining lever pieces into garments couldn't be improvised. Unlike simply wrapping oneself in a hide, tailored clothing with seams demonstrated an understanding of body structure. Experimental studies show that joints like elbows, knees, ankles, and the head are most prone to heat loss. These areas were typically covered with soft, elastic hides and required flexible seams that wouldn't restrict movement. Findings from Ice Age mummies, especially Ötzi, confirm this. His clothing wasn't made from a single large hide, but rather from multiple small pieces sourced from different animals, stitched together to maximize durability, flexibility, and insulation. This design reveals not just craftsmanship, but the ability to assess material properties and adapt construction to the human body. Creating functional clothing also demanded three-dimensional spatial reasoning, a skill rare in the animal world. To cut a hide into suitable shapes, early humans had to anticipate seam placement, account for shrinkage after drying, and leave allowance for stitching. This required geometric intuition and abstract material thinking, well beyond basic survival instinct. Sewing tools, though neither large nor sharp like weapons, played a critical role in winter survival. A single needle could extend human habitation thousands of kilometers further north, into regions where temperatures dropped below -20 degrees Celsius. Without sealed clothing, no human group could have survived in such conditions. From a technological standpoint, sewing tools represent a shift from biological to cultural adaptation. Rather than waiting for evolution to give them thick fur, humans transformed their environment through craftsmanship. They didn't change themselves, they changed what they wore. In the grand narrative of evolution, needles and thread don't seem as iconic as spears or fire. Yet they were the silent guardians, allowing Homo sapiens to outlast countless winters, expand their territories, and build communities in some of the coldest places on Earth. Part 3. Evidence from bones, teeth, and stone. Organic materials like animal hides, plant fibers, or sinew, the raw components used to make prehistoric clothing, rarely survive for tens of thousands of years. Time, climate, and microbes ensure their near-complete decomposition. Yet, modern archaeology does not rely on finding intact garments. Instead, researchers reconstruct prehistoric behavior through indirect evidence, from human teeth and bones to stone tools and animal remains. One of the most reliable data sources is dental wear on the front teeth of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Microscopic analysis shows that many individuals had horizontal, shallow, and symmetrical grooves, not the kind caused by chewing food. These wear patterns are consistent with holding leather thongs or sinews in the teeth while sewing or knotting. This wasn't an isolated phenomenon. It appears frequently at sites across Europe and Siberia, indicating a widespread and systematic behavior, especially in communities living in cold climates where clothing was essential for survival. Next comes the evidence from stone tools. Some small, fine blades show microscopic wear consistent with contact, not with muscle tissue, but with dried hide. Parallel striations, all aligned in the same direction, suggest they were used to cut, strip, or thin leather before stitching. Flat grindstones, often found near fire hearths, display edge wear consistent with sliding motions, much like cutting tools still used by Arctic hunter-gatherers such as the Inuit. These tools were clearly not used for hunting. Their primary function was likely the processing of soft materials for garment making. Animal bones also provide crucial insights. At many Middle and Late Stone Age sites, archaeologists have found bones carefully split to extract sinew, or long bones shaped into needles. Some of these bone needles have drilled eyes, consistent dimensions, and just the right length for hand manipulation. Crafting such tools required choosing bones that were strong yet narrow, usually bird bones or the foot bones of large mammals. This suggests a detailed understanding of materials and fine manufacturing skills. One of the strongest pieces of evidence comes from the famous mummy Ötzi, the Iceman discovered on the Austrian-Italian border, dated to over 5,000 years ago. While much later than early Homo sapiens or Neanderthals, his clothing reflects principles developed tens of thousands of years earlier. Ötzi wore at least 5 layers: a goatskin coat, an inner shirt made of deer hide, leather trousers, grass-lying socks, and a bearskin cap. All of these were assembled from small, stitched pieces rather than large, single hides. The seams show clear orientation and reinforcement at stress points. Each type of leather was selected for a specific function: soft hide for inner layers, thick hide for outer wear, water-resistant hide for footwear, demonstrating material classification by intended use. Analysis of Ötzi's garments reveals 3 key insights. First, the clothing was designed with physiological function in mind, protecting the knees, elbows, head, and ankles, areas vulnerable to heat loss. Second, the hide pieces were sewn together based on body structure, ensuring both mobility and comfort. Third, the use of multiple hide types suggests an ability to evaluate durability, flexibility, and thermal performance. Taken together, evidence from teeth, tools, bones, and mummies, it becomes clear that the making and wearing of clothing was an essential part of prehistoric culture. Clothing wasn't just for warmth. It was the result of accumulated knowledge, including anatomy, natural materials, craftsmanship, and design thinking. Human survival in glacial regions over centuries cannot be explained by fire and food alone. Clothing functioned as a second skin, handcrafted, climate adaptive, and passed down across generations. In the broader story of human evolution, clothing is not a side note. On the contrary, it was the dividing line between life and death, between settlement and migration, between the isolated individual and the protected community. Part 4. Encoding the body, clothing as language. Clothing is not just protection against the cold. It is also a system for conveying nonverbal information. Even in prehistoric societies without written language, garments, or anything worn on the body carried symbolic meaning. They reflected social position, group role, life stage, or collective belief. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies like the Inuit, Evenki, or Sami have found that clothing is never just physical covering. Every detail, from seam lines and hide choice to cut patterns and accompanying materials, carries specific meaning. A single black stitch on a collar might signal marital status. A particular fur patch sewn onto a shoulder could identify a group leader or a hunter who killed a large animal. These are not random features. They form a structured language using the body as a canvas to encode social information. Looking back 40,000 years, we no longer find complete outfits. But indirect evidence suggests this principle already existed. Many prehistoric figurines, such as the Venus of Willendorf and Gravettian female statues, show carved belts, headbands, and decorative patterns on the chest or hips. These details are not functional. They represent body adornment and reflect self-awareness and the capacity for visual communication through clothing. At several Upper Paleolithic sites in Europe, archaeologists have discovered thousands of ivory beads, animal teeth, fish bones, and mineral stones, all pierced or intricately carved. Many of these were found at the neck, arms, chest, or forehead in burials, indicating they were once sewn onto garments or worn as accessories. Their arrangement was not random. The beads were organized in strings, with symmetry and deliberate design, clear signs of symbolic identity and group belonging. Some bear-hide headdresses found in Stone Age cultural layers had no clear insulating purpose. Their thick structure, combined with preserved teeth or animal ears, points to ceremonial use. In many modern hunting societies, wearing parts of a hunted animal, especially large or dangerous ones, symbolizes power, achievement, or social rank. This allows us to infer that in prehistoric communities, clothing carried meanings far beyond practical use. Stone tools also support this theory. Some small glades show no signs of use in butchering or food preparation, but do bear microscopic traces of working with soft, colored materials such as ochre, charcoal, or pigments. These substances may have been used to dye hides, decorate garments, or paint the skin, creating a visual code shared within the community. This visual language played a crucial role in societies without writing. When names could not be written down, humans needed alternative systems to express kinship, marital status, group roles, or hierarchy. Clothing served as a fast, clear, and shareable identity marker. From an evolutionary psychology perspective, body decoration through clothing also aligns with biological signaling mechanisms. Someone wearing a uniquely patterned coat or a rare hide headdress could send a message: "I hunted this animal," or "I belong to a group with access to rare resources." These silent signals strongly influenced group structure, social status, and role distribution. The choice to use hides from various animals, not just one species, suggests that functionality wasn't the only concern. Each animal carried symbolic weight: bears for strength, deer for speed, foxes for cunning. Wearing a particular hide became a statement of personal identity within the group. From archaeological, anthropological, and behavioral evidence, we can conclude clothing was a nonverbal language. It was designed not only to cover the body, but also to communicate. It encoded memory, marked rituals, differentiated groups, and told the story of individuals and communities without a single word. Part 5. A legacy in every stitch. Today, putting on clothes seems simple. Pick an item, try it on, buy it within minutes. But these seemingly random choices, from fabric type to design and stitching, are shaped by a long evolutionary process stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Behind every reflex and modern fashion habit lies a neurocultural legacy from prehistory, when humans had to craft their own clothing to survive glacial conditions. Behavioral neuroscience shows that brain regions reacting to cold, especially the hypothalamus and sensory cortex, still operate on ancient danger alert principles. When skin temperature drops, the body triggers vasoconstriction, shivering, and an urge to seek shelter or bundle up. These are not learned behaviors. They're survival mechanisms selected and preserved across generations of Homo sapiens. Importantly, heat loss sensitivity is greatest in the head, hands, and feet. This explains why prehistoric garments like hats, gloves, and socks appear so early and consistently in archaeological findings. These extremities lose heat rapidly, have shallow blood vessels, and can trigger hypothermia if left unprotected. The way ancestors tailored and used clothing matches human physiology, not due to theory, but from first-hand encounters with cold, death, and survival. This evolutionary legacy persists in modern reflexes. When it's cold, we still put on hats, pull down sleeves, and wear thick socks. Just as Homo sapiens did 40,000 years ago. The only difference is in materials. Once it was hides, plant fibers, and dried grass. Now it's synthetic fabrics, blended wool, and waterproof membranes. But the logic behind the behavior remains unchanged. Even modern fashion aesthetics reflect ancient structure. Waist-cinched jackets, pleated seams, cuffed sleeves, and tight collars all stem from primitive needs to retain heat, seal overlapping hides, or block wind from slipping through gaps. These features evolved into style, symbols, and aesthetic codes long after the original environmental threats faded. Some ancient techniques, like fishbone stitching, shoulder-aligned hide seams, or layering multiple materials, still appear in cold-weather garment design, especially in places like Scandinavia, Alaska, or Mongolia. These are not mere stylistic choices. They are direct descendants of Stone Age technical solutions. This legacy is carried not just in our bodies, but in social memory. Every fabric layer, every stitch, every seam reflects a historical phase of adaptation, innovation, and preservation. In prehistoric societies without books or writing, clothing held inherited knowledge. Mothers taught daughters how to join deer hides. Elders showed children how to pull tendons into thread. Survival wisdom was literally sewn into coats, shoes, and belts. Thus, clothing is not merely a material product. It is living evidence of evolutionary intelligence, where humans didn't wait for biology to adapt, but created artificial protection instead. While other species depended on genes to adjust to the environment, Homo sapiens invented a cultural tool, clothing, to overcome their biological limits. From an anthropological viewpoint, this marked a revolutionary shift. Instead of passively adapting, humans actively constructed their own microenvironment. Fire cooked food, tools crafted tools, and clothing expanded human survivability into lands they otherwise couldn't inhabit. So every time you zip up a winter jacket or slip into fitted boots, you're repeating a behavioral chain formed tens of millennia ago. What seems like fashion, belts, seams, snug cuffs are living relics of solutions that once saved your ancestors' lives. Conclusion: clothing is not just a body cover. It is the crystallization of experience, a symbol of intelligence, and a cultural archive sewn by human hands. In every stitch, Homo sapiens did more than join pieces of hide. They stitched together the survival memory of an entire species, humankind.